Are there any trends that you're noticing that were not as prevalent or even in existence, say, 2 or 3 years ago?
I want to go backwards because the trend that I'm most excited about, I just experienced in your city.
Welcome to The Profitable Table, fed by Woolco Foods, a podcast at the nexus of hospitality, business, culture, and the mind. Now here's your host, Woolco Foods CEO, Steven Toboroff.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Profitable Table, fed by Woolco Foods. I am your host, Steven Toboroff, and today I have a return guest that I've been very much looking forward to speaking with. We haven't done an interview since 2021, and obviously a lot's transpired since then, and so I'm very eager to get my guests' insights and thoughts on the current state of the restaurant market. So without further ado, let me introduce my guest, which is Matt Plapp. Matt is the CEO, Chief Energy Officer of Restaurant Marketing That Works. His company owns America's Best Restaurants and Diver. Both companies' missions are to help restaurants find hungry customers through digital marketing. Matt, so good to speak with you again, man.
Hey, thanks, brother. I appreciate you having me back on.
No, it's my pleasure. And for people who have not listened to that first interview, I would really recommend that people go back and check it out because you'll get a lot of background on Matt, and you'll also get some of his insights at that moment in time dealing with some of the subjects we're going to cover today. But I would really recommend that people take a listen to that first interview. What I want to do, Matt, right now is really just jump into it because I'm very, as I say, eager to get your insights into things. So let's start, if you don't mind, by giving me your big picture view of what you're seeing from a macro perspective in the restaurant industry. We're going to go deeper and get more granular as we go on, but we'd just love to hear your thoughts on what's going on from sort of a macro 5,000-foot perspective from your vantage point.
Well, I think the restaurants, number one, have seen a decrease in frequency from customers because the bills have gotten higher. You know, I've been fortunate my entire life to have a good income, and to be quite honest with you, I don't look at prices of anything. But I've noticed, like just now, my dad and I went to a Mexican restaurant. There's two of us. I have a steak fajita plate. He has a taco bowl. The bill was $36. So there's people out there that aren't as fortunate as me that they look at that and they go, oh, okay, well, we're only going to go to this restaurant once a week, or our 4 visits that we could have used this couple $100s for 5 years ago is now 2 visits. So from what I've seen with clients of mine, it's not that they've lost customers. It's that they've lost the frequency of their best customers because they've had to raise menu prices because things cost a lot more than they did a couple years ago.
It's an interesting insight because I was listening to the conference call and of the CEO of Cisco. I like to keep up with the publicly traded competitors in the space. And he was talking about something similar that you just said and was almost arguing that restaurants should be perhaps lowering their prices because, and I did see this as well, 2022 was a year of tremendous inflation. And then there was deflationary pressures that I saw in the cost of commodities and other goods in 2023 and into 4. So restaurants which had no choice but to raise their prices in 2022 as some of these inputs have come down, hopefully they're getting better margins. So this would lead me to sort of where I was going to ask you next, which is from your perspective, you would then say that the overall inflation that we're seeing is having a negative effect on restaurants rather than positive in the sense of them maybe enhancing their gross margins or other dimensions emanating from the inflationary pressures.
Well, I think it's kicking the crap out of them. And I don't think, I know I personally visit restaurants on a frequent basis, and we've got with America's Best Restaurants, we've got 2 crews visiting 4 restaurants a day, Monday through Friday. We just completed I think it was 2 weeks ago, our 400th restaurant we have filmed at this year. And yes, restaurants have raised prices, but it's not going in their pocket. It's going to their vendors to pay their bills so they don't go out of business. I was just in Virginia Beach at a restaurant called Fire Brew Bar and Grill. Our software that we've bought, that we've changed the name for Driver. I realized in my email, I emailed you the wrong spelling, but it's Driver with a Y. The concept's driving sales to restaurants on autopilot. we were down there filming an episode of our docuseries, and he's our first marketing client that has come to the new platform since we've bought this company last November. And we were meeting with Dean, and Dean is the most prepared owner I've ever seen in my life. And like, I know this is an audio podcast, but Steven, you'll see this. This is the binder that we showed up, and he had an entire breakdown of his sales the last 7 years, every single chart you can imagine. And we were examining it to understand the impact that marketing has had on his sales. And you can look at it and you can see where in 2021, he did more sales than 2020 because of COVID. And he was impacted for about 2 months from COVID. But in 2021, people came back in droves. They were everywhere. He's in Virginia Beach. He's a tourist area, but he gets a lot more locals than tourists. But his sales in 2021 surpassed 2020, of course. 2022 surpassed 2021. Again, not as much, though. It wasn't a huge tick. And in 2023, his sales were up 4%. But the negative was his traffic count was way down because his average check was up $16. And so his sales were barely above what it was the prior 2 years. And, 25% of his customer visits were gone. And you might say, oh, well, his margins are better. Well, his margins aren't better. The prices had to go up because, he raised a certain price. Like he was showing me his one burger is like $22. And he's like, Matt, this burger was $14 5 years ago. It's like, it's not that it's $22 now that I'm making an extra $8. It's that I had to get $8 more to pay for the damn product. And so what I have seen, we deal with a lot of mom and pops. We don't deal with national chains. We have a couple franchise clients, a handful. It's probably between the 3,000 restaurants my company serves, I'd say were 400 locations are franchises. And so the rest of them are independent. So these one location mom and pops, they've gotten hit pretty hard with what it costs to buy product now. And consumers have a ceiling. Not many people can go with the lunch with their dad and drop. I dropped an $8 tip on the guy. It was $44 for lunch today at a mom and pop average Mexican restaurant that should be probably 18 to 20 bucks right now, but it's not because their cost of food, and I got a problem with it. They got to pay the bills, just like I got to pay the bills. My health insurance went up. I got more employees choosing 401k. I've got different acquisition costs we have that have gone through the roof. But I haven't seen, especially with like looking at Dean's numbers, his average check is through the roof compared to 3 years ago, but his visits are down and it's just barely covering the expenses.
It's interesting because from the perspective of inflation, and perhaps the New York City market is a little different, or at least segments of it are different, because I follow the economy pretty closely and overall macro trends. And on the one hand, the Fed has, of course, raised interest rates tremendously and raised them very quickly so that individuals who have savings can get now 5+% in their money market funds. Individuals who own assets such as stocks, coin, gold, real estate, all of those have gone up. So there's a segment of the economy that's actually benefiting, if you will, from the decisions of the Fed and have created a wealth effect. And then there's a whole other segment, a large segment, that relies on credit cards and debt to function, and they've been squeezed. And so what I find interesting is that I think, what we can see in the news, and I think you see it all the time, is that travel, hospitality, those segments of the economy are both really having inflation, but they're also really rocking. So my question to you is, Matt, it's a twofold question I have for you. The first is, what are you advising restaurants to do that are facing the pressures that you just detailed? That's one. And two, do you think for sort of the casual restaurants or the restaurants that had traditionally lower prices, do you think that as interest rates come down, which the Fed has indicated they will at some point in the near future, hopefully, do you think that those people will get a little bit of relief? And ironically, that segment of the market might get a kickstart. It's a two-part question, but would love your thoughts on those two things.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing, too, to kind of back up a little on what I talked about, 2022 and early 2023, a lot of consumers still had that COVID money. They had money that they had gotten from different grants or unemployment. Like I saw something, it was probably early last year that it was the highest amount of cash reserves consumers had had in the bank in a long time, and now it's all gone. So early 2023, they were cash rich because of all these incentives. And then come 2024, they're cash poor. And the cheeseburger down the street is now $7 more. It's like, okay, I can only eat out a certain number of times. But what I advise restaurants to do, and this might sound self-serving because we are a marketing company, you got to market more. You've got to go out and take more piece of the pie, because what I've seen happen, and I've been through 5 different economic downturns in my marketing career, and the businesses that I've seen go out and aggressively attack the market. And what happens is, for example, if you might have had 5 years ago, 100 restaurants in a given community actively marketing, asking people to do business with them, running Facebook ads, doing radio and cable and direct mail, they're going after a certain amount of the market. Well, when their margins get squeezed, the first place they look to cut is things that they do not know if it's working, and they go to advertising. I mean, I can tell you for a fact, it is the number one thing that people cut when they look to save money is advertising. Well, it's kind of funny. It's like you're not cutting your gas to make your car. That's what happens. Like, I look at my car. If I quit putting gas in it, it ain't going anywhere. I'm going to eventually have enough gas. So you've got to look at what your business needs to run. Just like I said, the car, Ferrari, a Honda, a Jeep, all need gas to keep going. At some point, they run out. Well, if you as a business cut off the only opportunity you have to tell your story and get people in your business, which is advertising and marketing, your luck's going to run out at some point. So I look at it this way, that 5 years ago, you might have had 100 restaurants going after 1,000 consumers. And so now you go, well, crap, there's only 500 consumers because people are eating out less. I can tell you from the numbers, you only got about 5 restaurants going after those people, because the restaurants pull in the purse strings, they get really tight, and they cut off what they can control. They can't cut off their food costs, their mortgage, their insurance, their electric. They can't cut people because they still have demand coming in and they can't find good people. So things like advertising get thrown by the wayside. And when that happens, in 60 to 90 days is when you start to see that. But if you're on the other end of that, you're a restaurant that says, hey, 9 out of 10 of my competitors have pulled in the purse string. Yes, there's a smaller pie of the scale to go get, but with them not going after people, I'm going to get it. And I just did a podcast on this today. I do a daily podcast called Restaurant Marketing Secrets. Just recorded episode 670. And episode 668 was about Wingstop down the street from me. 4 weeks ago, I'm driving down Mall Road. I rarely go down this path by my house. I was going to breakfast to meet a friend. And I see Wingstop's open in a location. And my son, it was top of mind, ironically, because about a month earlier, we drove by a Wingstop 30 minutes from our house. And my son's like, oh, I love Wingstop. We got to hit here one day. I'm like, well, we're never up here. Maybe we will. Well, here we go. Wingstop's opening 5 minutes from our house, right near my office. Forgot about it. I drove by, saw the banner coming soon, told him about it, go on my way, travel a couple of times to go on vacation. So it's been a month. I had forgotten about it. Yesterday, I'm in my hammock at my house. Facebook ad pops up, now open Wingstop Mall Road. I'm going there this weekend with my son. It wasn't the banner that got me. It wasn't the Facebook ad that got me. It was a combination, but it was also, there's some brand equity. Now, if Wingstop didn't run that Facebook ad, I probably don't go buy that restaurant for another 6 months. And so restaurants, number one thing they have to do is realize that the fuel they're putting in their car is advertising. And right now, it is the easiest and least expensive time ever to advertise, because of platforms like Facebook and Instagram that give you the ability to say, hey, put $10 a day in the meter, target 35 to 55-year-old women with kids that are married that live 2 miles from your restaurant, and put a good offer in front of them. So it's a golden opportunity. And then I agree with you on the last part is I think it's going to pad their margins in 24 to 36 months, because if Matt Plapp becomes accustomed to paying for a $15 cheeseburger for the next 2 years, and now that restaurant isn't paying what they are now, they're paying, let's say, $2 or $3 less, that restaurant probably isn't going to lower their prices. People are going to be kind of accustomed to it. My house right now is $350,000 more in value than it was 6 years ago. I still crack up. Like, I'm in Kentucky and I've got a nice house, nice property, good area. But I look at what the houses on my street are selling for, and I'm like, what the hell has happened here? And it's literally double some of the houses' values in my neighborhood. The one house sold for $750,000. It was on the market for like $340 6 or 7 years ago. Well, just because the market's changed now, people are going to go, oh, the house is back to 500. Consumers are accustomed to that house now costs 700 or 800. So I think in 24 to 36 months, when we see these things ease, we see an ease up on it, and we see prices going back down to reality, you're all of a sudden going to have consumers that are equipped or accustomed to paying that. Now, I would think if I was a smart restaurant and I'm at, say, a $15 burger and I was at a $10 burger, I might come down to like $13.50. I wouldn't give all of that margin back, but I would give a little back to be a little aggressive and get more volume.
Very interesting. And I agree with your thoughts with respect to leaning into marketing. You're correct when you say that it's one of the first things that people cut, and it really shouldn't be, because, as you say, without sales, nothing happens. And I think it's important to recognize that and perhaps even appreciate that more, hopefully before a crisis or a downturn, but certainly leading into it. So you talked a little bit about it, Matt, but let's say you had a restaurant that agrees with what you're saying, they know they need to market, and in a sense, they're kind of enthusiastic because, like you said, a lot of their competitors aren't doing it, but they do have a limited budget. What do you think is the best way for individuals to get the most out of their marketing dollars in this environment using digital platforms?
Paid Facebook ads all day long. I'll give you a couple reasons. Number one, it is really easy to find a very specific audience through the platform, and you can spend as little as $1 a day. Now, I wouldn't recommend $1 a day because you need about $5 to $10 a day to get what's called machine learning. Facebook needs to see enough people stopping, clicking, and commenting to find the right people based on that. But on top of that, there's no demand for it from the people that spend the most money, the big brands. About 6 months ago, I'm traveling and I'm in the bookstore in the airport and I see the Harvard Business Review, and I'm not smart enough to read the Harvard Business Review. I'll be quite honest with you there. But the cover was a bullseye, a phone, and social media insights. I'm like, okay, it looks like Matt's a Harvard guy today. So I grabbed this magazine for like $20. I'm reading it on the plane. It was pretty cool to see because I knew this already and I've heard it in many different ways, but to see Harvard put a research project into this and study it was pretty wild. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 90 to 95% of digital advertising spend is controlled by the big brands. Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Red Bull, Chevy, Toyota, all those guys. They do not target people over 21 years old. Well, Steven, who's eating at restaurants? Who's eating at a Mexican restaurant that costs $40 for two people? Not a 21-year-old, right?
Definitely not.
Yeah, it's you and I. It's our spouses. It's our friends our age. And so what you look at is you look at Facebook as a great example. Matt Plapp is a 48-year-old male who's married with kids. My kids are now grown. Coca-Cola has absolute zero interest in going after me. And so what happens is 90 to 95% of the money that Facebook and even Google and YouTube, all these platforms are getting is coming from the big people. Well, they're only targeting people under 21 and somewhat 20 to 21 to 25. Well, that means that there is a huge amount of inventory of people that are 48 years old. Nobody's going after us. It's sad to me that the Wingstop ad is the second restaurant ad I have seen this entire year in Northern Kentucky. And you're talking to a guy that eats out 90% of the time. I eat lunch and dinner. I rarely eat breakfast. That's why I drove by the Wingstop the other day. I don't ever get breakfast. My buddy's like, hey, meet me at this First Watch for coffee at 7 a.m. I'm like, okay. Drove down there. One of the probably 2 times I've had breakfast in 3 months. But I eat every day of the week. I eat out at lunch, and probably 6 out of 7 nights I eat out for dinner. Facebook's algorithm knows this. Google's algorithm knows this. Instagram knows this. They know where you're at. They know what you do. They know your habits. They know what you stop on, what you click on, what you comment, what you're most likely to digest. If anybody was running Facebook ads in my region, I would see it. Mi Cozumel is a place up in Cincinnati, is an amazing restaurant, for Mexican restaurant, awesome. Cost me $190 for 4 of us last time I was there. It's not cheap. It's a great experience, and I'll pay it all the time. But Mi Cozumel and Wingstop, and now, here's why I bring this up. How sad is that, Steven, that I can remember the 2 ads I've seen on Facebook for restaurants in my area? I should have seen 100.
It's a great point. And I love it when you see opportunities that are just waiting to be utilized, and it's a lack of information that keeps people from doing it. Now, with respect to your America's Best Restaurants, outside of the economic dynamics for a moment, Matt, are there any trends or anything that you're seeing nationally, one? And two, are you noticing a difference in terms of economic, I should say, engagement based on region? Are there some regions of the country that are still seeing a lot of growth in the hospitality space? Are there some that got overheated and are cooling down? And are there any trends that you're noticing that were not as prevalent or even in existence, say, 2 or 3 years ago?
I want to go backwards because the trend that I'm most excited about, I just experienced in your city. So I travel a lot, and I'm leaving tomorrow morning from Miami. I was just in New York. I was in Chicago 2 weeks ago. I go to Vegas every 3 to 4 weeks. I'm in California, Los Angeles, and San Diego pretty often. Those markets tend to be the leaders and the first adopters, early adopters on a lot of things. 3 years ago, it was the year after the pandemic. I'm traveling to a couple of these cities, and I'm astonished that when I pull into these cities, my plane lands, I'm at JFK, I hop in an Uber, I go to my hotel, I don't look up at a billboard, I never listen to the radio. I'm sure still not watching TV in my hotel. And there's not a single Facebook or Instagram ad targeting me, a tourist who just landed in the city. And I did numerous podcasts on this, and I was like, wow, I was blown away. Well, guess what? Now, when I land in those big cities, I see ads. I went to a place called The Edge in New York. It's a giant observation building right there down on the river. Unbelievable experience. We flew in Saturday before last. Saturday night, I see an ad for it as I'm laying in bed. I look at it. I realize it's a block from our hotel. And I'm like, it's pretty cool. Click on it. $190 with tax. Me and the wife and kids go and see this cool observation deck. 2 or 3 years ago, I wouldn't have been delivered that ad. While I was in New York, I saw a lot of ads for businesses trying to get me to come spend my money there. They targeted me because the algorithm says, hey, here's a guy that is in town right now to deliver an ad to him. Probably cost them $3 to $5 to get my attention. And I spent $190. Las Vegas, which was the most comical one for me, is 3 or 4 years ago, I go to Vegas. I've probably been there 15 times this year. When I would go to Vegas 2, 3, 4 years ago, I would never be delivered a digital ad. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like, these are some of the biggest players in the industry. They should be doing this. Well, now they are. When I land in Vegas, I'm delivered immediately with an ad from Cosmopolitan. There's a casino called the Cosmopolitan. It's got a Holstein's in it, which is a burger and milkshake place. They've got a place called Eggmont, which is a breakfast. You got the Sphere. I probably got 100 ads within one day of being in Vegas. And so one of the trends I'm excited about is the fact that these businesses weren't doing it 2 to 3 years ago and they are now, tells me that maybe mom and pop businesses are going to go, this is now available. So maybe in 2 or 3 years, I'll be seeing 15 to 20 restaurant ads for local restaurants in my community. And it's kind of sad because I've been running these ads for restaurants since 2012. So something that's been available the last 12 to 13 years, people aren't using. The fact I'm seeing it in the big markets, that's exciting. So I'm really excited about that. Where it's affecting people, we see it in our place. Most businesses that are kind of rural, I guess you could say, like in Northern Kentucky here where I'm at, we're, in Cincinnati, it's a major metropolitan area, I think 35th in the country. If you go an hour east of here, you get out to a place called Maysville. Maysville is a very dependent community that's dependent on the ebbs and flows of the economy. When things go really good, they got money. And they also save it because they're country folk. When things go bad, prices go up, they're also very frugal. And they go, we're good going to that. We'll just keep growing out on the farm. So I see that a lot of the communities like that, we've got clients. I was at one about 3 months ago up in Minnesota, about an hour outside the Twin Cities. And they're a small community. It's like 35 minutes each direction to any type of other town. They got 15,000 people. When prices go up, when gas prices are up, grocery prices are up, and food prices at restaurants are up, those people typically live more frugal lives. And so they're the smarter ones to pull back when times get a little tougher. People in my area are more prone to take credit card debt and keep with the same exact habits, including myself. So that's the trend I've seen. So a lot of the clients we've seen impacted more are the people who are outside of those big communities.
So Matt, what I notice in our marketplace, and I think this is probably true throughout the country to a large extent, is most restaurants and most businesses in general have a social media presence. They have a website. At this point, if you don't have that, it's not good. My question, Matt, is what do you think is the best type of content for people to be putting on their Instagram page, their Facebook, their TikTok? Because I know there's a lot of different schools of thought on what type of content is best. And I'd love to hear your perspective. And let's even narrow it down a little bit more. For the independently owned restaurants, as you call them, the mom and pops, how often should they be posting? And let's just keep it simple on one platform, let's say Instagram. What are your suggestions in terms of how frequently people should be posting and what type of content is the best if the objective is to either get new customers or to incentivize existing customers to return or recommend them?
I'll switch it over. Let's go Facebook, because Instagram is the second place you should be. As a independent restaurant in 90% of this country, yes, there's going to be some cities like New York's and bigger cities that might have a younger population on Instagram, but even my 21-year-old daughter is on Facebook, and there is more opportunity on any platform than anything than Facebook as far as attention. The second thing is I tell people to do is draw a line down the middle of the word social media. The way restaurants treat Facebook is they think it is their answer to what Valpak was. Remember Valpak and all those direct mail, money mailer? Restaurants now think, oh, I've got a place to put that lame coupon. I'm going to put it on my Facebook page. I actually was on a pizza restaurant's page today. We have a client of ours, got 138 locations, and I was doing a coaching call with him, brainstorming some ideas, and I looked at, just randomly picked one of the locations, and it was pitiful. It was abysmal. It was sad. And it was a coupon every other day, just puking on people about here's a reason to come, get a discount at my restaurant, which I hate. I don't mind giving somebody a high value offer in exchange for their data or in exchange for them spending more money than they normally would spend, but I never want to discount and get profit away. So when you look at social media, draw a line down the middle, social and media. Facebook has two things. They have your wall, which you have the ability free of charge to make posts on. That is social. People spend most of their time on Facebook not going there and wondering, did my favorite restaurant make a post today about their pizza? They're on there to argue politics, to talk about sports, to catch up with their friends, to see their friends' pictures from their wedding. They're on there for social reasons. Media is the paid advertising side of it. If you're going to run an ad on Facebook trying to get people to buy food, then run a damn ad. Put a high value call to action up, put a compelling reason for them to come to your place, get on the Facebook ads platform, say, I want to run this for the next 3 days, spend $50 and drive $300 in sales and you're good. If you want to be social, get on there and relate with your community. Where I live in Union, Kentucky, the saddest display of social media ever has happened the last couple of years. In 2022, the two girls from Ryle High School, where my daughter graduated, she graduated with both these girls. They were the number 1 and number 2 basketball players in the state of Kentucky. One of them played at Oregon, one of them played at Washington. Guess who played on ESPN? These two girls. Guess how many restaurants in our community did any promotions around Lauren and Maddie playing on ESPN, two high school teammates that grew up from this community? If I'm that restaurant in Union, Kentucky, I'm having a podcast where I'm going live on Facebook with the parents of each of the kids. I'm having Maddie Day and Lauren Day. We're having a watch party. Forget selling pizza. Sell the excitement from your community. Create a reality show. And I did a bunch of marketing. When that didn't happen, because I saw it happening, because I knew what was happening, I'm like, oh, they're going to play. I wonder who's going to talk about it. Nobody at all. The Cincinnati Enquirer did a one little blurb article on it. That was the only exposure it got. I'm like, wow, that was a big miss. Well, then about 8 months later, Christmas of 2023, around there, 2022, the Ryle High School band was one of 8 bands chosen to be in the Pearl Harbor Parade. And I'm like, okay, so you got 8 bands out of how many thousands of high school bands, the same high school. And not one time did a restaurant owner, like there's a pizza place across the street from Ryle, walk across the street to the band directors and loading up the bus and have some fun. Go live on Facebook. Okay, I'm with the band director, Kevin. Tell me about the band. You guys are going to Pearl Harbor Day Parade in Hawaii. This had to be expensive. Can people donate? How can we support you? That is social media. I remember when reality TV got big 15, 20 years ago with Survivor and, Naked and Afraid and, the reality shows like the Orange County Choppers, and people love it. Well, you as a restaurant owner have the most intriguing opportunity to tell your story. So when you ask what content gets people going, the content that gets people going is exactly what we're talking about. It's being social. It's going live on Facebook to talk about your business. We had a restaurant the other day that a car drove through the front window. Nobody got hurt. It was after hours. They hit a wall. Dude, go live. Have fun with it. Hey, I guess we got a drive-through. Check it out. Somebody ran the red light, hit a car, bounced into the window. Nobody was hurt. But this is the daily life of running a restaurant. We got to do this, this, and this. Talk about new food you got coming out. Go into your store. Hey, Sarah is the valedictorian of the high school down the street. I'm going to talk to her today about her journey of that. So that is how you can use social media. And that content is relevant anywhere. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts. It's all free to use. Record a video, download it to your phone, post it on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts, and Twitter, X. And you got free exposure. And even if you get 1 or 2 views, it's 1 or 2 more than you had.
I think that's great advice from a practical standpoint. And I also think it reinforces something that I saw, and I think we all saw during the whole COVID episode and coming out of it, which is restaurants were really engaged with their community in a lot of different ways, during that difficult time. But I think you're 100% correct, regardless of whether it's in small town America, the suburbs, or in the middle of New York City, you need to be not just engaging with the community, whether that's the local baseball team or a local street fair or whatever it is, but broadcasting that and publicizing that. It brings a level of authenticity to the restaurant. And then my question, Matt, though, would be just riffing off of that. Let's say you have, it's great to create great content that people want to engage in and displays your business and your authenticity. Is there a conversion rate on that can be nudged by the restaurant? Or is it really just a matter of getting people aware of you and hopefully you're going to generate those good vibes, that relationship, that nostalgia, that connection? Or is there anything you can do at the point of them engaging with the content you've created to achieve the objective of getting them in your doors or perhaps even ordering from you online?
So let me ask you a question. Give me a restaurant that you love, Steven.
I'm going to call out one that I really love. I don't get to go to it as often as I would like to, but Le Rivage in New York City, awesome traditional French restaurant. Been there forever, and I love going there. Le Rivage.
Okay. So you love the service, you love the food. I want you to imagine that restaurant is a mile from your house and your work. So you have all the opportunity to go there. Would you agree with me that if you saw that restaurant 10 times a year, whether it's on an email, a text, their sign, it would influence X number of visits? Let's say 2 times. You see it 10 times, like, oh shit, we're going to go there. Would you agree that it's going to influence some level of decision to go there more often?
Yes, I would.
So if, instead of seeing it 10 times, you saw it 500 times, you'd probably get a little more FOMO and want to eat there more often. Like, that's my jam.
Got it.
And so that to me is what you have to think about. It's like working out. I've lost 23 pounds this year since Christmas because I woke up at Christmas, realized I was about 30 pounds from where I should have been. And it was because I was drinking. It went from 5 years ago, a Coke every couple weeks to a Coke every 3 days, a donut every 3 days, a candy bar every couple days. You get it. Like, next thing I know, you don't think it's that much. But when you turn around at 48, and I'm an active guy, I played basketball an hour and lifted weights an hour yesterday. I do the same thing all the time. I've never not worked out since I was in college. But when I'm in my mid-40s, you start thinking about the amount of sugar. Like I saw a picture today, it was a Ziploc bag, and it showed what one Coke a day for 365 days, how much sugar it was. It was intimidating looking. Well, it's the same thing that if I look at my last 6 months, all I've changed is I told myself Christmas Day, for the next 3 months, I'm not going to touch a soft drink, a cookie, a donut, a piece of cake, a pie, milkshake, or ice cream. And I'm going to eat pizza once a week, buffalo wings once a week, and French fries and chicken tenders once a week. I lost 23 pounds off that. And in March, I decided to make it all year. And I just got back from a cruise, which if you've ever been on a cruise, it's a smorgasbord of ice cream and treats. Didn't touch one, didn't have the craving. Well, the reason I lost that 20 pounds not so hard in the past 6 months is because I got rid of stacking all that useless sugar in my body. Well, if you take that to the other side of marketing, you say, okay, there's this great restaurant that Steven lives near that he really likes, that has good food, good service, that there's no reason he wouldn't go there outside of being reminded enough. And so if all of a sudden that restaurant has Facebook content that shows up on your timeline every 3 to 4 days versus every month, you open a few more emails a month versus you used to. You get a phone call from the restaurant. You get a text. How many times have you gotten called on your birthday by a restaurant owner?
I don't think I ever have.
Ever. It's the biggest atrocity in marketing. The number one time that people are almost always guaranteed to spend money and without a budget and do something with more than one person is their birthday. And not many restaurants, we teach it in our trainings, we coach it to customers. I've got podcast after podcast. Like you've got somebody that enrolls in your birthday program and they give you their email or their phone number for texting. Pick up the phone the week before. Have one of your servers do it. 90% of people don't even answer the phone, so it's an easy voice message. But the 10 out of 100 that answered are like, are you kidding me? My favorite pizza joint's calling me my birthday? Avery Ward of Little Italy Restaurante in Groveport, Ohio, had his GM Winslow fight me on this early on. Said, man, this is going to be a bad idea. I don't think it's going to work. Started doing it. Within a month, that's all he talked about. He sent me a text about 2 weeks ago. He called a customer. The guy is a pilot for an airline that can dictate where his paths are sometimes. The guy got a call on his birthday, doesn't live there anymore. His mom does. He changed his flight pattern to get back to Columbus, Ohio, and picked his mom up for birthday dinner at Little Italy Restaurante because Winslow called him. He said, my guy, it's my favorite pizza. My kids don't call me on my birthday. I've never had a restaurant call me. You damn right I'm coming back. And he said, what's funny, the guy has now changed some of his flying, how I guess he must have seniority. He can do this. He's been at Little Italy 3 times in the past 45 days. So you ask about engagements. The next level of that is what can you do to leverage those conversations? There's a tool. We just activated it in Driver, our new platform. So we bought a company called Repeat Returns, been around for 15 years in the restaurant space. We bought it last November, changed the name this summer, and we've integrated a bunch of stuff. One of the things we integrated was called the Facebook Comment Growth Tool. So we have now the ability via Facebook or Instagram to hook it up to a restaurant's Facebook page. And so when somebody comments on a post, so if you pop on there and say, hey, who's got big plans for 4th of July weekend? And people comment, it has the ability to open up a conversation in Messenger and say, hey, Matt, thanks for your comment. By the way, are you a member of Steven's VIP Burger Club? Click below if you're not. You click below, it asks you a couple questions, gets your name, your phone number, your birthday, and then gives you an offer you can't refuse. So now you took that engagement on your content and got people to give you their customer information. Now you have a way to email them, text them, give them a phone call based on that. So that's one big thing. And ManyChat is also another platform I have. It's called the Comment Growth Tool, CGT. And it's a very dynamic opportunity that's not being leveraged by most restaurants because it's one thing to get people to watch a video on Facebook. It's the next thing to get them to comment. It's the next thing to create a conversation. And that's what social media is about. And that's my last tip for you here with regard to content is reply to everything. If somebody tells you they love your restaurant and had a great experience, don't give them a copy and paste. Matt, we appreciate it. What did you have and when were you here and who was your server? The opportunity to have conversations is a gold mine. And so every time somebody comments on a post or on a review, engage them. If somebody tells you that they were at your restaurant and had a great meal and loved it, don't just do the copy and paste, thank you, we appreciate your business. Ask them what they had. Ask them who their server was. Ask them what they loved the most about the restaurant. How long have you been coming? I saw recently where a client of ours took this action, because whenever I have a client that takes action on my podcast, or even just a random listener, I follow their page. And this customer made a comment about it. And they said, oh, great, what did you have and who was your server? And the person replied back with the server and the menu item. They said, oh my gosh, she's so awesome. She's been here 8 years. She's a loyal employee. She's active in the community. We appreciate it. And by the way, that's my favorite meal too. Next time you're in, try the meatballs. And then that person commented back. And what happens is when people engage in your content like that, Facebook's algorithm says, oh, who else do they know that is in this area that we should show this content to? And that's how content goes viral. And viral could mean you got 10 comments on a post that would normally get 1 because you did it right.
Well, I have to say, Matt, this has been a real treasure trove of information. And certainly from my perspective, I would certainly say that it's very important, for restaurants, whether you're doing well or you're not doing well or whatever's going on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. In addition to focusing on the cuisine, on the service, on the experience of people who come in the door, we're at a very unique moment in history where there's a lot of opportunity to reach out to people and engage with them in a frictionless manner or almost frictionless manner. And it's really imperative that people use it. And I think you've given us tremendous information and insights. If people want to get in touch with you, Matt, can you please give us just some ways if people have a question or they want to reach out to you?
It's simple, mattplapp.com, MATPLAPP.com. If you go there, there's links to all my social media. Myself and my team are active on it. And there's also links to my blog and podcast. In June of 2022, I started doing a daily podcast. It's 5 to 10 minutes long. It's one piece of advice. And I started it, honestly, Steve, because at that time I had about 7 weekly video podcasts. I did it for about 2 years. And I sat back one day and thought, I don't even like listening to my crap. Like, this is 45 minutes. I got homework when I get off this. I don't have 45 minutes. And I thought, what do I like the most? And there's a guy named Alex Hormozy who had a daily podcast called Gym Launch Secrets. And he would pop on every day and go, hey, I just thought of this idea. You should do this. And I really liked it. And I owned a gym at the time. And so it was relevant there. So I started doing Restaurant Marketing Secrets. And it's a daily podcast. It's one tip. It's anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes long. And then 3 months ago, I started writing every day. And so I write a daily blog now that's a little deeper from the podcast with examples, tips, tricks, links to other resources. But go to mattplapp.com. I can be reached anywhere there.
Matt, that's awesome. Really appreciate this conversation. Again, for those that want a little bit more information on Matt or some different perspectives, I would absolutely recommend you check out our first interview. What can I say? Very thought-provoking, very informative, very valuable. So Matt, want to thank you again, man, and hope you have an awesome day.
You too, brother. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Profitable Table, fed by Woolco.